The Galactic Confederacy had never taken Earth seriously. To them, we were just another second-rate mining colony, useful only for our mineral deposits and occasional unique biological samples. The year was 2265, and humanity had spread throughout our solar system. But we remained confined within its boundaries. The Confederacy had made sure of that, through trade restrictions, technological embargoes, and the occasional peacekeeping mission that always seemed to leave our outposts more damaged than before. Beneath the thick ice sheets of Europa, Jupiter's sixth moon, we had built our answer. I stood at the viewport, watching the blue-white landscape above us. Kilometers of ice separated us from the vacuum of space, and beneath our feet lay an ocean deeper than any on Earth. We had chosen this place for its isolation and for the abundant resources the subsurface ocean provided. But mostly, we chose it because no one would think to look here. "Commander Cole?" a voice called from behind me. I turned to see Burke, my right hand and former Space Marine. His face was drawn, the scar across his left cheek more pronounced in the blue-tinted light of the command center. "The Growl Syndicate has hit another mining station in the asteroid belt," he said, handing me a data tablet. 32 dead, 57 wounded. They didn't even bother with demands this time. I scanned the report, feeling the familiar weight of responsibility settle more heavily on my shoulders. "And the Confederacy's response?" Burke's expression hardened. "The usual. They've issued a statement of deep concern and promised to look into the matter." "Which means they'll do nothing," I said, tossing the tablet onto a nearby console. "There's something else," Burke said, his voice dropping. A message came through on the encrypted channel, from Admiral Santiago. My pulse quickened. Santiago had been my commanding officer in the fleet, before I'd gone into self-imposed exile. If he was reaching out now. What did it say? Just 3 words: "Activate Project Leviathan." The command center fell silent. Everyone present knew what those words meant. We had hoped for more time, more preparation, but events were forcing our hand. "Have you told Dr. Morozov?" I asked. Burke nodded. "She's already in the reactor chamber, running preliminary checks on the Mark 7. I took a deep breath. The Mark 7 reactor was our greatest triumph and our most dangerous secret. Officially banned by Confederacy edict, the technology had been developed in the shadows by a team led by Faye Morozov, a brilliant physicist who had grown tired of watching Earth bow to alien powers. The reactor could generate more power than anything in the Confederate fleet, but it was untested at full capacity. "Get me a direct line to Morozov," I ordered, moving toward the command table at the center of the room. A moment later, the stern face of Dr. Morozov appeared on the main screen. Her silver hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her eyes showed the strain of too many sleepless nights. "Jackson," she said, dispensing with formalities as always. "Burke told you?" "Yes. How soon can the Mark 7 be ready?" She hesitated, something I rarely saw her do. "We can have it at 70% capacity within 12 hours. But full power. I need at least another week of testing." "We don't have a week," I said. "The Growl are escalating their attacks, and the Confederacy is looking the other way. The reactor could tear itself apart if we push it too hard, too fast," she argued. "We've never tested the containment fields above 80%. And we've never had 32 of our people slaughtered without provocation," I countered. "We built Leviathan for a reason. Faye, that reason is here." Her shoulders slumped slightly, but she nodded. "I'll have it ready in 8 hours. But I want it on record that I advised caution." "Noted," I said, "and thank you." After the screen went dark, I turned to Burke. "Alert all section heads. We're moving to Phase 1. I want a status report on every system within the hour." "Yes, sir," Burke replied, already moving to carry out my orders. I returned to the viewport, staring up at the ice above us. Somewhere beyond that frozen ceiling, humanity was suffering, squeezed between the Confederacy's indifference and the Growl Syndicate's aggression. We had spent 5 years building our response in secret, smuggling materials from Mars and Titan, recruiting the best minds who shared our vision. Project Leviathan, a supercarrier unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, hiding beneath the ice of Europa. 3 hours later, I stood in the massive chamber that housed our creation. Leviathan stretched before me, its dark hull absorbing the light. Nearly a kilometer long, it was shaped like a flattened arrowhead, designed for both atmospheric and deep space operations. Its surface was studded with railgun emplacements, missile pods, and point defense systems. But its true power lay within, the Mark 7 reactor that would give it unmatched speed and firepower. The cloaking system is still giving us problems, Burke said as we walked the length of the hangar. Engineering says they can get it to 90% effectiveness, but there will be energy leakage detectable at close range. It'll have to do, I replied. What about the crew? All personnel are reporting in. We're at 86% of optimal staffing. I nodded. It's enough. We'll manage. A technician approached, looking nervous. Commander, Dr. Morozov requests your presence in the reactor control room immediately. When I arrived, Morozov was standing before a holographic display of the Mark 7, her expression troubled. What's wrong? I asked. The ethical constraints, she said without preamble. I need to know if you want them removed. I stared at her. The ethical constraints were safeguards built into the reactor's control systems, preventing it from being used for certain applications, like powering weapons capable of planetary destruction. Are they interfering with our timetable? No, she admitted, but they will limit our options once we're engaged. I considered this. We had built Leviathan to protect humanity, not to become the very thing we were fighting against. Leave them in place, I decided. We're better than the Confederacy. I intend to prove it. Relief flickered across her face. Good. I'd hate to think we went through all this just to become monsters ourselves. How's the reactor coming? We're at 62% and climbing. We should reach the 70% threshold ahead of schedule. And that's enough to launch? She nodded. More than enough. Just don't expect any fancy maneuvers until we're up to full power. As I left the reactor control room, Burke intercepted me in the corridor. We've got another message from Santiago, he said urgently. The Confederacy's Security Council is meeting in 6 hours. Word is, they're going to authorize the Growl to pacify the outer colonies. Pacify? I spat the word. That's their euphemism for slaughter. Yes, sir. Santiago says if we're going to move, it needs to be soon. I made my decision. Tell Morozov we're launching in 5 hours. I want all hands at their stations in 3. What about the hull integrity checks? We were scheduled to... No time, I cut him off. We'll have to trust our engineers did their jobs right. As Burke hurried away, I felt the weight of command pressing down on me. 5 years of planning and building in secret, all coming down to the next few hours. If we failed, Earth and her colonies would be at the mercy of both the Confederacy and the Growl. If we succeeded, well, we'd be changing the course of human history. Either way, there was no turning back now. 4 hours later, I stood on Leviathan's bridge, surrounded by the crew I had personally selected for this mission. Many were former fleet officers like myself, who had grown disillusioned with the Confederacy's treatment of Earth. Others were civilians who had lost loved ones to Growl raids. All were committed to our cause. Main drives online, reported the propulsion officer. Mark 7 reactor at 68% and holding steady. Weapon systems check complete, added the tactical officer. All railguns operational. Missile tubes 1 through 40 loaded and ready. Communications are secure, said the comm specialist. Encrypted channels established with our allies on Mars, Titan, and Ceres. I nodded, taking my place in the command chair. Navigation. Plot a course to the asteroid belt. Maximum stealth approach. Course plotted. Commander. I took a deep breath. All sections. Prepare for launch. Engineering. Begin ice sealing breach protocol. Above us, carefully placed charges would soon detonate, creating a pathway through Europa's icy crust. The breach would be detected eventually, but by then, we would be long gone. "Charges armed," reported Burke from his station. "Detonation in 3, 2, 1. A distant rumble vibrated through the ship, and on the main view screen, we watched as a massive hole opened in the ice above, revealing the star-filled blackness of space. "Maneuvering thrusters online," called the helmsman, beginning ascent. Slowly, Leviathan rose from its hidden berth, water from Europa's subsurface ocean freezing instantly as it contacted the vacuum of space. The ship passed through the breach, its dark hull barely visible against the backdrop of stars. "We're clear," announced the helmsman. "Awaiting your orders, Commander." I leaned forward in my chair. "Engage main drives. Set course for the asteroid belt. Maximum stealth." Leviathan surged forward, leaving Europa behind. Our journey had begun. There was no way to know what awaited us. But one thing was certain. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity was no longer willing to be pushed around. As we accelerated away from Jupiter's gravity well, I thought about all that had led us to this moment. The years of humiliation as Earth was treated like a backwater colony. The Confederacy's patronizing protection that came with crushing restrictions. The Growl Syndicate's increasingly bold attacks, met with nothing but empty words from those who claimed to be our allies. That was about to change. Leviathan was our statement to the galaxy. Earth would determine its own destiny from now on. "Commander," called the sensor officer, her voice tense. "I'm detecting multiple ships at the edge of the asteroid belt. Growl signatures." "How many?" I asked, moving to her station. 7 vessels, 6 frigates, and what appears to be a heavy cruiser. "They're moving into attack formation," added Burke, studying the tactical display. "Looks like they're preparing to hit the mining station at Ceres." I straightened up. "This is it, then, our first test." "Sir?" Burke looked at me questioningly. "We can't let them hit Ceres. There are over 5,000 civilians there. But revealing ourselves now, we're not at full power, and we haven't tested most of our systems in actual combat." "If not now, when?" I asked. "Tactical. Prepare main railguns. Navigation. Plot and intercept course." The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, though I could see the tension in their movements. We had trained for this. But simulation was one thing. Reality was quite another. "Approaching asteroid belt," reported the helmsman. "Growl ships still unaware of our presence." "Hold position at the edge of their sensor range," I ordered. "Dr. Morozov, what's the status of the Mark 7? Morozov's voice came through the comm system. "Holding at 72%. I can give you a brief surge to 80 if needed, but not for long." "Understood. Stand by." I turned to the tactical officer. "Target the lead frigate. I want a clean shot with the forward railgun. Let's see what this ship can do." "Target locked," came the reply. "Railgun charged and ready." I took a moment to consider what we were about to do. This would be an act of war, not just against the Growl, but potentially against the Confederacy as well, since we were operating an illegal vessel with banned technology. But the alternative was to watch as more innocent people died. "Fire," I ordered. The ship shuddered slightly as the railgun discharged, sending a tungsten projectile hurtling toward the Growl frigate at a significant fraction of light speed. On the view screen, we watched as the kinetic round struck its target, tearing through shields and hull alike. The frigate broke apart, secondary explosions rippling along its length. "Direct hit!" exclaimed the tactical officer. "Target destroyed." "Growl fleet is responding," reported the sensor officer. "They're changing course, moving to investigate." "They still don't see us," added Burke. "They're scanning the area, but our cloaking system is holding." I nodded. "Target the second frigate. Fire when ready." Another railgun shot. Another explosion as a Growl ship disintegrated. "They're scattering," said Burke. "The cruiser is moving to a defensive position." "Sir," called the communications officer. "We're receiving a transmission from the Growl cruiser. They're broadcasting on all frequencies." "Let's hear it," I said. A harsh, guttural voice filled the bridge. "Unknown vessel. Identify yourself immediately. You have engaged Growl Syndicate ships in violation of Confederacy Treaty. Stand down or face destruction." I smiled grimly. "No response. Target their engines. I want that cruiser disabled, not destroyed." "Aye, sir." This time, the railgun's projectile struck the cruiser's main drive section, causing a cascade of explosions that left the vessel drifting. "The remaining frigates are powering up their jump drives," reported the sensor officer. "They're retreating." "Let them go," I said. "They'll spread the word." The bridge erupted in cheers, the tension breaking. We had just won our first engagement without suffering so much as a scratch. But Burke wasn't celebrating. He stood at the tactical station, his expression grave. "Sir, we just painted a target on our backs. The Confederacy will know about this within hours." "Good," I replied. "Let them know. Let them all know that Earth is no longer defenseless." As the crew continued their work, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of unease. We had crossed a line, and there would be consequences. Lives had been lost. Enemy lives, yes, but lives nonetheless. And this was only the beginning. The comms officer interrupted my thoughts. "Sir, incoming transmission from Ceres Station. They want to know who we are." I considered this. Secrecy had been our ally until now, but perhaps it was time for that to change. "Open a channel," I ordered. "Audio only." When the connection was established, I spoke clearly. "Ceres Station, this is Commander Jackson Cole of the Earth vessel Leviathan. The Growl threat has been neutralized. You're safe for now." There was a moment of stunned silence before a voice responded. "Commander Cole, but you... Everyone thought you were dead. What is Leviathan? Where did you come from?" "That's a long story," I replied. "One that I hope to share with all of Earth's colonies soon. For now, know that you're no longer alone. The tide is turning." As I closed the channel, Burke approached. "Sir, a message is coming in on the secure frequency. It's from High Chancellor Monroe himself." I stiffened. Monroe was the head of Earth's government, a man known for his diplomatic skills and his unwavering loyalty to the Confederacy. That he would contact us directly was unexpected. "Put it through to my private terminal," I said. "I'll take it in my ready room." Once alone, I activated the screen to see Monroe's familiar face. His silver hair was impeccably styled, his expression a careful mask of concern. "Commander Cole," he began without preamble, "you've created quite a stir. The Confederacy Security Council is in emergency session, and I've spent the last hour assuring them that Earth had no knowledge of your activities. With all due respect, Chancellor, I don't answer to the Confederacy anymore. None of us do." Monroe's eyes narrowed. "You speak of treason, Commander." "I speak of survival," I countered. "While you've been playing politics, the Growl have been slaughtering our people. Someone had to act. By building an illegal warship and attacking Growl vessels? Do you have any idea what you've done? The Confederacy could impose sanctions that would cripple Earth's economy." "They already treat us like second-class citizens," I said. "How much worse could it get?" Monroe leaned closer to the camera. "Much worse. I assure you. Stand down. Cole, bring that ship to Earth immediately. Perhaps we can still salvage this situation." Something in his tone made me suspicious. Monroe had always been too eager to accommodate the Confederacy's demands. "I'm afraid that's not possible, Chancellor. Leviathan has work to do." "This isn't a request," Monroe snapped, his diplomatic veneer cracking. "This is an order from your government. Stand down or be declared an enemy of Earth." "Interesting," I said slowly. "I just destroyed 2 Growl ships that were about to attack a human colony, and somehow I'm the enemy. Makes me wonder whose side you're really on, Chancellor." Monroe's face flushed with anger. You've made a grave mistake, Cole. One that all of humanity will pay for. The transmission ended abruptly. I sat back, thinking. Monroe's reaction seemed extreme, even accounting for the political pressure he was under. It made me wonder if there was more to this situation than I knew. When I returned to the bridge, Burke was waiting. What did Monroe want? He ordered us to stand down and return to Earth. And I declined, I said. Something's not right. Burke. Monroe was too angry, too insistent. Burke nodded thoughtfully. I've been going through some of the secure communications we intercepted before leaving Europa. There's something you should see. He led me to a data terminal and pulled up a series of encrypted messages. These were exchanged between Monroe's office and an unknown recipient using a Confederacy diplomatic channel. I scanned the decoded text, my blood running cold. The messages detailed specifications of the Mark 7 reactor, our most closely guarded secret. Monroe has been feeding information to the Confederacy, I said. The realization hitting me like a physical blow. He's been reporting on Project Leviathan from the beginning. It gets worse, Burke said grimly. The last message includes coordinates for a rendezvous at Kuiper Station. Monroe is planning to hand over the complete Mark 7 schematics in exchange for a guarantee of his continued leadership. I clenched my fists. He's selling out humanity to maintain his own power. What do we do? I straightened up. My decision made. Set course for Kuiper Station. If Monroe wants to betray Earth, he'll have to get through us first. 2. The kinetic punch and the treacherous scheme. The journey to Kuiper Station would take us through the heart of the asteroid belt, a treacherous region even for experienced navigators. But it was the fastest route, and time was not on our side. Reactor status? I asked, as we maneuvered between two massive asteroids. Mark 7 holding at 75%, reported the engineering officer. Dr. Morozov says she's making progress on stabilizing the output. I nodded. Weapons check. All systems operational, replied the tactical officer. Railguns recharged, missile tubes ready. Burke approached, his expression troubled. We've analyzed the encrypted communications further. The meeting at Kuiper is scheduled for 18 hours from now. Monroe is bringing the complete Mark 7 schematics, including the breakthrough that Dr. Morozov made with the containment field. If the Confederacy gets those schematics, our advantage is gone, I said. They'll be able to build their own Mark 7 reactors, or worse, develop countermeasures specifically designed to neutralize ours. There's something else, Burke added. Monroe isn't traveling alone. He's bringing a security detail led by Director Kyle. I tensed. Kyle had been my superior officer in the fleet, a ruthless tactician known for his unwavering loyalty to the Confederacy. He had been the one to recommend my dishonorable discharge when I had questioned Confederate policies. This complicates things, I admitted. Kyle knows me, knows how I think. He'll be expecting trouble. We still have surprise on our side, Burke pointed out. They don't know about Leviathan's capabilities. Not fully. True, I conceded. But we need to be careful. Kuiper Station is technically neutral territory. An attack there could alienate potential allies. I called a meeting of the senior staff in the ship's conference room. As they assembled, I studied their faces, men and women who had risked everything to join this mission. They deserved to know the truth. We have confirmation that Chancellor Monroe is planning to betray Earth. I began without preamble. He's been feeding information about Project Leviathan to the Confederacy, and in 18 hours, he intends to hand over the complete Mark 7 schematics. Murmurs of shock and anger rippled through the room. Our mission has changed, I continued. We need to intercept Monroe at Kuiper Station and retrieve those schematics before they fall into Confederate hands. Kuiper Station has its own security force, pointed out the tactical officer. And it's a civilian facility. There will be innocent people there. I'm aware of the risks, I said. That's why we're going to be precise. A small team will board the station while Leviathan remains at a safe distance. Our goal is to capture Monroe and the schematics with minimal collateral damage. I volunteer to lead the boarding party, said Burke immediately. I shook my head. I need you here, coordinating from the ship. I'll lead the team myself. This sparked immediate protests, which I silenced with a raised hand. This is not up for debate. I know Kyle's tactics better than anyone, and I need to look Monroe in the eye when we take him into custody. Reluctantly, the others accepted my decision. We spent the next several hours planning the operation in detail. The boarding team would consist of myself and 5 others, all with Special Forces training. We would approach Kuiper Station in an unmarked shuttle, dock at a maintenance airlock, and infiltrate the station under the guise of a routine inspection. As the planning session concluded, Dr. Morozov pulled me aside. Jackson, there's something you should know about the Mark 7. Her serious tone caught my attention. What is it? The breakthrough that Monroe is planning to hand over. It's not just about the containment field. It's about the potential applications. Explain, I prompted when she hesitated. The Mark 7 doesn't just power Leviathan systems, she said, lowering her voice. With some modifications, it could be weaponized directly. The energy output could be focused into a beam capable of destroying a small moon. I stared at her. Are you saying we've built a planet killer? No, she said quickly. The ethical constraints prevent that configuration. But if the Confederacy gets the schematics and removes those constraints, they could build the ultimate weapon, I finished. All the more reason to stop Monroe. As I walked away, I couldn't help but feel the weight of responsibility growing heavier. We had created Leviathan to protect humanity, but in doing so, we might have inadvertently given our enemies the means to destroy us all. 6 hours later, I stood in the shuttle bay, checking my equipment one last time. The boarding team was assembled, each member carrying standard-issue stun weapons and defensive gear. We had agreed to use lethal force only as a last resort. The shuttle is ready, reported the pilot. A young woman named Tara who had once been a transport runner between Earth and Mars. Good, I said. Remember, we go in quiet. No one fires unless I give the order. Burke approached, handing me a small data pad. Latest intelligence from our contact on the station. Monroe's shuttle arrived early. They're in the diplomatic quarter, Section C. That changes our entry point, I noted. We'll use maintenance shaft D7 instead. Burke nodded. Leviathan will maintain position behind Kuiper's moon. We'll be ready to extract you at a moment's notice. I clasped his shoulder. If anything goes wrong, your priority is the ship and crew. Don't risk Leviathan for us. With all due respect, sir, that's not how we operate, Burke replied firmly. I smiled, despite the tension. Fair enough. But use your judgment. The mission comes first. With that, I boarded the shuttle with my team. As the bay doors opened, revealing the blackness of space, I felt a strange calm settle over me. Whatever happened in the next few hours would shape the future of Earth and her colonies. The shuttle departed Leviathan, its running lights dimmed to reduce visibility. Behind us, the massive supercarrier moved into position behind Kuiper's small moon, hidden from the station sensors. Kuiper Station appeared on our view screen, a sprawling complex of interconnected modules orbiting a captured asteroid. Originally built as a scientific outpost, it had evolved into a neutral meeting ground for various galactic factions, a place where deals could be made away from prying eyes. Approaching maintenance dock D7, announced Tara. No challenges from station security yet. Good, I said. Keep radio silence unless absolutely necessary. The shuttle maneuvered carefully to the small airlock, designed for maintenance drones and emergency access. With a soft thud, we docked, and the team prepared to disembark. Remember, I said, our objective is Monroe and the Mark 7 schematics. We avoid confrontation if possible. The team nodded, their faces set with determination. The airlock cycled, and we entered the station. The maintenance corridor was narrow and dimly lit, with pipes and conduits running along the walls. We moved silently, following the path we had memorized from the station schematics. "Security checkpoint ahead," whispered one of the team members, checking a handheld scanner. "2 guards." I signaled for the team to hold position while I assessed the situation. The checkpoint was a standard security post, monitoring access to the main sections of the station. We couldn't avoid it without taking a long detour that would cost us valuable time. "We'll use authentication bypass," I decided, pulling out a small device designed to spoof security credentials. It was a risky move. If the station had updated its protocols recently, the bypass might trigger an alarm. I approached the checkpoint, keeping my posture relaxed. The 2 guards looked up, instantly alert. "Maintenance inspection," I said, holding up the bypass device. "Section C reported environmental control issues." The guard scanned the device, frowning slightly. For a moment, I thought our cover was blown. Then the scanner beeped confirmation, and he nodded. "Proceed," he said. "But keep it quick. VIPs in the diplomatic quarter today." "Understood," I replied, gesturing for my team to follow. Once past the checkpoint, we moved more quickly. The diplomatic quarter was 3 levels up, accessed via a central lift system. "Bypassing the main lifts," I instructed. "We'll use the service shafts." The service shaft was cramped and uncomfortable, but it allowed us to avoid the more heavily monitored areas of the station. We climbed steadily, emerging on level 3 without incident. "Section C is 30 meters ahead," whispered the team member with the scanner. "I'm detecting multiple life signs. At least 8 individuals. Monroe, Kyle, and security detail," I murmured. "And likely the Confederate representative." I needed to see the situation for myself before deciding on our approach. Signaling the team to hold position, I moved forward alone, using the maintenance access to approach the diplomatic suite from an adjacent service area. Through a ventilation grate, I could see into the main meeting room. Monroe was there, seated at a conference table. Across from him sat a Confederate official I didn't recognize, flanked by 2 aides. Director Kyle stood near the door, along with 3 security officers. On the table between them was a data crystal, undoubtedly containing the Mark 7 schematics. I strained to hear their conversation. "The Security Council is satisfied with the information you've provided so far, Chancellor," the Confederate official was saying. "But they require the complete technical specifications before they can guarantee Earth's special status." Monroe nodded. "I understand. The data crystal contains everything. Dr. Morozov's breakthrough with the containment field, the power modulation system, everything." "And what of this Leviathan?" asked the official. "Your intelligence suggested it had already been deployed." "A regrettable situation," Monroe replied smoothly. "Commander Cole acted without authorization. Once you have the Mark 7 specifications, neutralizing Leviathan should be a simple matter." My blood boiled at the betrayal, but I forced myself to remain calm. We needed to move now, before the exchange was completed. I returned to my team and quickly outlined what I had seen. "The schematics are on a data crystal in the main conference room. Monroe, a Confederate official, and 6 others are present." "Direct approach," suggested one of the team members. I shook my head. "Too risky. We need a distraction." I thought for a moment, then made my decision. "Jenkins, access the environmental controls for that section. I want a sudden drop in oxygen levels, enough to cause concern, but not danger. Williams, be ready to cut power to the room on my signal." Both nodded and moved to carry out their tasks. "The rest of you, with me," I said. "We'll position ourselves at both entrances. When the distraction hits, we move in fast. Stun weapons only. I want prisoners, not casualties." We took our positions, waiting for the signal. Through my earpiece, I heard Jenkins's voice. Environmental controls accessed. Ready on your mark. Do it, I ordered. Inside the conference room, warning lights began to flash as the oxygen levels dropped. I could see confusion spreading across the faces of those inside. Now, cut the power, I instructed Williams. The conference room plunged into darkness, emergency lighting casting an eerie red glow over the scene. Move, I commanded, and we burst into the room from both entrances. The security officers reacted quickly, reaching for their weapons, but in the confusion and dim light, we had the advantage. Stun blasts dropped 2 of them before they could fire. Nobody move, I shouted. Hands where I can see them. Director Kyle, ever the professional, had already drawn his weapon and taken cover behind a console. He fired a shot that narrowly missed one of my team members. Cole, he snarled, recognizing me. I should have known you'd be behind this. Drop the weapon, Kyle, I demanded. It's over. Instead, he fired again, forcing us to take cover. In the chaos, I saw Monroe lunging for the data crystal on the table. The crystal! I shouted. One of my team members fired a stun blast at Monroe, but he had already grabbed the crystal and was running for a side door. The Confederate official close behind him. Secure the room, I ordered 2 of my team. The rest with me. We pursued Monroe through the door, finding ourselves in a corridor leading to the station's docking bays. Ahead, I could see Monroe and the Confederate official running, flanked by the remaining security officer. Stop or we'll fire, I called out. They ignored the warning, continuing their flight. I raised my stun weapon and fired, catching the security officer in the back. He collapsed, but Monroe and the official kept running. We chased them through the corridors, alert for station security. So far, our distraction seemed to have worked. No general alarm had been sounded yet. Monroe and the official reached a docking bay door and frantically began the cycle to open it. We were only seconds behind them. It's over, Chancellor, I said, training my weapon on him. Hand over the crystal. Monroe turned, his face twisted with rage and fear. You fool! Do you have any idea what you've done? The Confederacy was our only hope for survival. By selling out Earth's greatest defense, I countered. That's not survival. That's surrender. The Confederacy would have protected us. The way they protected the mining colony last week? Or Ceres today? I shook my head. They were using us, Monroe, and you were helping them. The Confederate official suddenly pushed Monroe aside and drew a concealed weapon. This technology belongs to the Confederacy now, he declared. Before he could fire, one of my team dropped him with a stun blast. Monroe used the distraction to try to open the airlock door, but I crossed the distance between us in 2 strides and grabbed his arm. The crystal, I demanded, now, realizing he was trapped. Monroe reluctantly handed over the data crystal. As I took it, the station's general alarm finally sounded. Station security has been alerted, reported one of my team. We need to move. I nodded, securing the crystal in a protected pocket. Back to the shuttle. Bring Monroe. What about the others? Asked a team member, gesturing to the stunned Confederate official. Leave them. Station security can deal with them. We made our way back through the corridors, avoiding the main thoroughfares where security would be concentrated. Monroe, now our prisoner, moved sullenly between 2 team members. You've doomed Earth, he muttered. The Confederacy will never forgive this. They were never going to save us, I replied. Not at the price you were willing to pay. We reached our entry point and began climbing back down the service shaft. Station security would be searching for us, but they would be looking for a larger group, not expecting us to use the maintenance routes. Burke, I said into my communicator once we were clear of the interference fields. Mission accomplished. We have Monroe and the crystal. Requesting extraction. Understood, came Burke's reply. Shuttle standing by at the maintenance dock. Leviathan is moving into position. As we approached the dock, a security team appeared at the far end of the corridor. Halt! They shouted. You are under arrest by authority of Kuiper Station. Go! I ordered my team, pushing Monroe ahead of me, Get to the shuttle! We ran for the airlock, stun blast from the security team hitting the walls around us. One of my team was hit, stumbling to his knees. I pulled him up, half carrying him the rest of the way. The shuttle's airlock opened as we approached. We tumbled inside, Monroe still firmly in our grasp. Go, 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 I shouted to Tara. The shuttle detached from the station, thrusters firing at maximum. Behind us, the maintenance dock's emergency bulkhead slammed shut, the station going into lockdown. Station security vessels deploying, reported Tara. 3 interceptors on an intercept course. Evasive maneuvers, I ordered. Get us back to Leviathan. The shuttle weaved through space, the interceptors in pursuit. They were faster and better armed than our transport. But we only needed to reach Leviathan. There she is, said Tara, relief evident in her voice. Leviathan emerged from behind Kuiper's moon, its massive hull dwarfing our pursuers. The Supercarrier's launch bay opened, ready to receive us. Interceptors are locking weapons, warned Tara. Almost there, I said. Just a few more seconds. The shuttle slipped into Leviathan's bay, just as the first interceptor fired. The shots dissipated harmlessly against the Supercarrier's shields. Shuttle secure. I reported over the ship's comm. Get us out of here. Maximum speed. Leviathan's engines roared to life, the massive ship accelerating away from Kuiper Station. On the bridge, Burke had already plotted a course that would take us deeper into the asteroid belt, where we could lose any pursuit. I escorted Monroe to the brig personally, saying nothing as he was secured in a detention cell. This isn't over, Cole, he said as I turned to leave. You can't fight the entire Confederacy. I paused at the door. We're not fighting alone anymore. Your betrayal is being broadcast across every human colony as we speak. The truth about how Earth's own chancellor was willing to sell out humanity's future. Monroe's face paled. You didn't. We did, I confirmed. Every word of your conversation with the Confederate official, every detail of your plan to hand over the Mark 7 schematics. By now, the entire solar system knows what you were willing to do. I left him then, his protests fading behind me as the brig door sealed shut. In the corridor, Burke was waiting. The broadcast went out as planned, he confirmed. We're already receiving responses from Mars, Titan, and the outer colonies. They're with us. Jackson. I nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and apprehension. And the Confederacy. They've issued an ultimatum. Surrender Leviathan and all associated technology within 24 hours, or face severe consequences. As expected, I said. What about Kuiper Station? In lockdown. The Confederate official is claiming diplomatic immunity, but the station authorities are holding him pending an investigation. I handed him the data crystal we had recovered. Get this to Dr. Morozov. I want her to confirm it contains what we think it does, and then secure it in the most protected system we have. As Burke left to carry out my orders, I made my way to the bridge. The crew stood a little straighter as I entered, a new confidence evident in their bearing. Status report, I requested, taking my seat in the command chair. We've cleared Kuiper's sensor range, reported the helmsman. No pursuit detected. Reactor at 78% and stable, added the engineering officer. Dr. Morozov reports the Mark 7 is performing better than expected. I nodded. Considering our next move, the Confederacy would not take this challenge lying down. They would come for us, and when they did, they would come in force. Set course for Mars, I decided. It's time to gather our allies. 3. The Kuiper Station raid. The journey to Mars would take us through a particularly dense section of the asteroid belt. Under normal circumstances, ships avoided this region due to the navigational hazards posed by unpredictable asteroid movements and the fields of debris that could damage hull plating. But these were not normal circumstances, and the difficult route offered us protection from pursuit. Adjusting course to avoid collision, reported the helmsman, her hands moving deftly over the controls. Large asteroid cluster ahead. On the main view screen, I could see the field of tumbling rocks, some as large as small moons, others barely the size of our shuttle. Between them floated clouds of dust and micrometeoroids, invisible to the naked eye, but potentially lethal to our ship's systems. "Maintain current speed," I ordered. "Let's use the asteroid field to our advantage." Burke approached my chair, a data pad in his hand. "Dr. Morozov has confirmed the contents of the crystal. It's the complete Mark 7 schematics, including the classified research on direct energy applications." "So Monroe was planning to give them everything," I said grimly. "Yes. Morozov is working on enhancing our security protocols to ensure the data can't be remotely accessed." I nodded. "And our guest?" "Secure in the brig. He's demanding to speak with you." "Let him wait," I replied. "We have more pressing matters." The tactical officer interrupted. "Commander, sensors are detecting multiple ships entering the asteroid field behind us. Confederate signatures." "How many?" I asked, moving to the tactical station. 7 vessels, 5 destroyers, 1 cruiser, and 1 dreadnought." The bridge fell silent. A dreadnought was the largest class of warship in the Confederate fleet, carrying enough firepower to level a small moon. "They're not wasting any time," Burke observed quietly. "No, they're not," I agreed. "Tactical. What's their approach vector?" "They're spreading out, trying to flank us. The dreadnought is holding position at the edge of the field, likely coordinating the search." I considered our options. We could try to outrun them, but the destroyers were designed for pursuit and would eventually overtake us. Fighting was an option, but even with Leviathan's advanced systems, a dreadnought was a formidable opponent. "Helm, adjust course," I decided. "Take us deeper into the field, toward the high-density region." "Sir?" The helmsman looked uncertain. "The navigation hazards in that area are extreme." "Exactly," I said. "Their larger ships won't be able to follow us effectively. We'll use the asteroids for cover." As Leviathan changed course, diving deeper into the belt, I turned to the communications officer. "Send a message to our contacts on Mars. Tell them to expect us, but warn them that we're bringing company." "Aye, sir." The ship shuddered as a small asteroid glanced off our shields. The dense field ahead loomed ominously on the view screen, a chaotic swarm of rocks and debris. "Shields holding at 92%, reported the engineering officer. "Minor impact damage, nothing critical." "Confederate ships are adjusting course to pursue," said the tactical officer. "The destroyers are maintaining visual contact." I nodded. "As expected. Tactical. Prepare aft railguns. Target the nearest asteroid cluster when I give the word." Burke raised an eyebrow. "Creating a debris field?" "Exactly. Let's see how eager they are to follow us." As we penetrated deeper into the asteroid field, the navigation became increasingly treacherous. The helmsman's hands flew over the controls, making constant micro-adjustments to avoid collisions. "Confederate destroyers still in pursuit," reported the tactical officer. "Range, 18 kilometers and closing." "Now," I ordered. "Fire aft railguns at the asteroid cluster." The ship shuddered slightly as the railguns discharged. On the view screen, we watched as the kinetic rounds struck a dense collection of asteroids, shattering them into thousands of pieces that expanded outward in a deadly cloud. "Direct hit," confirmed the tactical officer. "Debris field expanding across their approach vector." The lead Confederate destroyer tried to adjust course, but at its speed, the maneuver was impossible to complete. It plowed into the debris field, its shields flaring brilliantly as they attempted to deflect the onslaught of rocks and metal. "Destroyer 1 has sustained significant damage," reported the sensor officer. "They are falling back. The others are adjusting course to go around the debris field." "That will slow them down," Burke noted, "but not stop them." "It buys us time," I replied. "And in this case, time is exactly what we need. Helm, continue on current course. Engineering, what's the status of the Mark 7? "Reactor holding steady at 80%, came the response. "Dr. Morozov reports she's made progress on the stabilization protocols." "Good. We may need a burst of speed once we clear the asteroid field. For the next several hours, we played a dangerous game of cat and mouse through the asteroid belt. The Confederate ships pursued relentlessly, but Leviathan's superior maneuverability allowed us to stay ahead, using the natural hazards of the belt to our advantage. As we approached the outer edge of the belt, Mars, becoming visible in the distance, the tactical officer reported, "Confederate forces are pulling back. They're regrouping at the edge of the belt." I frowned. "That doesn't make sense. Why break off pursuit now?" Burke studied the tactical display. "They're not giving up. They're positioning themselves to intercept us once we leave the belt." I saw it then. The Confederate ships were forming a blockade between us and Mars, cutting off our escape route. "They're trying to force us into a direct confrontation," I said. "On their terms." "What's the plan?" asked Burke. I thought for a moment. We need to reach Mars, but we can't fight our way through that blockade without risking significant damage. An idea began to form. Communications. Open a channel to our contact on Mars. I need to speak with Commander Reel immediately. While waiting for the connection, I studied the tactical display. The Confederate forces had arranged themselves in a classic intercept formation, with the destroyers forming a picket line and the cruiser and dreadnought holding position farther back, ready to engage once we were committed. "Channel open," reported the communications officer. "Commander Reel is standing by." Reel's face appeared on the screen, her expression grim. "Cole, I see you've brought some unwelcome visitors to our doorstep." "Not intentionally," I replied. "The situation has escalated faster than we anticipated." "So I see. The Confederate commander has already contacted Mars Colony, demanding we deny you docking rights and assistance." "And your response?" A tight smile. "I told them that Mars would determine its own policies regarding Earth vessels. They didn't appreciate the sentiment." "I can imagine," I said. "But we still need to reach you without engaging that blockade directly." Reel leaned closer to the camera. "We might be able to help with that. We've been developing a new defensive system, localized EMP buoys designed to disrupt ship systems temporarily. They're still experimental. But they might create enough confusion for us to slip through." I finished. "Can you deploy them?" "Already on it," she confirmed. "Give us 2 hours to position them correctly. When they activate, you'll have a narrow window to break through. I'm sending the coordinates now." "Understood. We'll be ready." After ending the transmission, I turned to Burke. 2 hours. Get Monroe up here. It's time he and I had a chat." When Monroe was escorted to the bridge, he looked around with undisguised contempt. "So this is the famous Leviathan. I must say, for a ship built in secret, it's quite impressive." "Save it," I said coldly. "You're here because I need information. The Confederate fleet pursuing us. Who's commanding it?" Monroe smiled thinly. "Why should I tell you anything?" "Because right now, you're facing charges of treason against humanity. Your cooperation might be taken into consideration." He laughed bitterly. "Treason. I was trying to secure Earth's future. The Confederacy offered protection." "At the cost of our autonomy," I cut in. "They wanted the Mark 7 technology so they could control us more effectively, not to protect us." Monroe's eyes narrowed. "You're a fool, Cole. Earth can't stand alone against the Growl Syndicate or the other powers in this sector. We needed allies." "We need allies who respect us," I countered. "Not masters who exploit us. Now, the fleet commander. Who is it?" Monroe hesitated, then sighed. "Admiral Voss. He commands the dreadnought Judicator." I exchanged a glance with Burke. Voss was known as a methodical tactician, cautious, but thorough. That explained the blockade approach, rather than a more aggressive pursuit. "What else can you tell us about his tactical preferences?" I pressed. "He won't underestimate you," Monroe said. "Not after what happened at Kuiper Station. He'll have studied the reports of Leviathan's capabilities and planned accordingly. I nodded. Thank you for your honesty, Chancellor. You'll be returned to your quarters now. As the security team led Monroe away, Burke approached. Voss is a problem. He won't be drawn into a hasty engagement like the Growl were. No, but he has his weaknesses. He's traditional, rigid in his thinking. He'll expect us to either run or fight conventionally. And instead, we'll do neither, I said. Get Dr. Morozov up here. I need to know if the Mark 7 can handle something unconventional. When Morozov arrived, I outlined my plan. Her eyes widened. You want to intentionally create a reactor surge? Are you insane? Not a dangerous surge, I clarified. Just enough to create a radiation signature that would make it appear we're having containment problems. She shook her head. It's risky. The Mark 7 is stable now, but deliberate fluctuations could trigger actual containment issues. Can it be done safely? I pressed. She hesitated. Theoretically, yes. We could route excess energy through the secondary cooling systems, creating a controlled release that would register on their sensors as a potential containment failure. And it would look convincing to someone like Admiral Voss. Yes, she admitted. It would appear that your reactor was approaching critical failure. Good, I said. That's exactly what we want. They'll be expecting us to either surrender or make a desperate run for Mars. They won't be prepared for what we're actually going to do. Over the next 2 hours, we prepared for our breakout attempt. Dr. Morozov and her team worked on the controlled reactor surge, while the tactical team rehearsed our approach. When Ryle contacted us to confirm the EMP buoys were in position, we were ready. All hands, battle stations, I ordered. Reactor control, stand by for the simulated surge. Helm, plot your course exactly as we discussed. Leviathan, move toward the edge of the asteroid belt. The Confederate blockade visible ahead of us. The 5 destroyers maintained their picket line, while the cruiser and the dreadnought Judicator held position behind them. They're scanning us, reported the sensor officer. Multiple targeting locks detected. Incoming transmission from the Judicator, added the communications officer. Put it through, I said. Admiral Voss appeared on the screen, his weathered face impassive. Commander Cole, this is Admiral Voss of the Confederate Security Fleet. Your vessel is in violation of multiple Confederate statutes. Power down your weapons and engines, and prepare to be boarded. Admiral, I replied calmly, the Terran Free Alliance does not recognize Confederate authority in this matter. We request free passage to Mars. Voss's expression hardened. There is no recognized Terran Free Alliance. Commander, you are operating an illegal vessel with stolen technology. This is your final warning. Surrender or be destroyed. I'm afraid we can't do that, Admiral, I said, then cut the transmission. They're moving to intercept, reported the tactical officer. Destroyers adjusting position to cut off all approach vectors to Mars. Now, Dr. Morozov, I ordered. She nodded to her team, and they began the controlled reactor surge. On the ship's external sensors, the radiation signature from Leviathan's engines flared dramatically. Surge active, Morozov confirmed. It should read as a serious containment issue on their scanners. Confederate ships are reacting, said the tactical officer. They're adjusting their formation, creating more distance between vessels. As expected, I said. They think we're about to blow. Helm, maintain course directly toward the center of their formation. Make it look like we're attempting a desperate break for Mars. Leviathan accelerated toward the blockade, its reactor signature growing increasingly erratic on external sensors. The Confederate ships adjusted their positions further, creating a wider net to catch us regardless of which way we turned. EMP buoys activating in 3, 2, 1, counted down the tactical officer. Across the space between us and Mars, dozens of small devices suddenly activated, sending out powerful electromagnetic pulses. The effect on the Confederate ships was immediate. Navigational systems fluctuated. Communications became garbled, and targeting systems reset. "Now," I ordered. "Full power to engines. Execute the skip drive jump." The skip drive was another of Dr. Morozov's innovations. Not a true faster-than-light system, but a short-range spatial displacement drive that could skip a ship across a limited distance. It was experimental and power-intensive, but it was our best chance. Leviathan shuddered as the skip drive engaged. For a moment, the view on the main screen blurred, space itself seeming to fold around the ship. Then, with a violent jerk, we reappeared, behind the Confederate blockade, between the cruiser and the dreadnought Judicator. "Skip successful," exclaimed the helmsman. "We're past their line." "The surge worked," added Dr. Morozov. "They're still focusing on our previous position, expecting a reactor breach." "Confederate ships are in disarray," reported the tactical officer. "The EMP has disrupted their systems. They're struggling to reacquire us." "Helm, maximum speed to Mars," I ordered. "Let's not waste this opportunity." As Leviathan raced toward the red planet, the Confederate fleet scrambled to respond. The destroyers attempted to give chase, but the combination of the EMP disruption and their initial positioning made an effective pursuit impossible. "We're clear," announced Burke, relief evident in his voice. "Mars defense perimeter in range in 5 minutes." I allowed myself a small smile. "Well done, everyone, especially you, Dr. Morozov. Your skip drive just made history." She nodded, though I could see the strain on her face. "The reactor handled it better than I expected, but we won't be able to use the skip drive again anytime soon. The power requirements are too extreme." "Understood. Hopefully we won't need to." As we approached Mars, the Colonial Defense Grid activated, a network of automated platforms and armed satellites forming a protective bubble around the planet. It wasn't enough to stand against a determined Confederate assault, but it provided a measure of security while we were docked. "Mars Colony Control is clearing us for approach," reported the communications officer. "Commander Ryle is requesting your presence as soon as we dock." "Tell her I'll be there," I replied. "Burke, you have the bridge. I want a full damage assessment and a security detail for Monroe. We'll need to present our evidence to the Mars Colonial Council." Within the hour, Leviathan was docked at Mars's orbital facility. As I prepared to disembark, Burke approached with a final report. "The Confederate fleet has taken up position just outside Mars's defensive perimeter," he said. "They're not attacking, but they're not leaving either." I nodded. "Voss is being cautious. He knows attacking Mars directly would escalate this from a security operation to an act of war." "For now, at least," Burke agreed. "But that could change if he receives new orders from the Confederacy. All the more reason to solidify our alliance quickly," I said. "Keep Leviathan on alert status. If anything changes, I want to know immediately." With that, I left the ship, stepping onto Mars soil for the first time in 5 years. Commander Ryle was waiting, a small security detail at her side. "Welcome to Mars, Commander Cole," she said, extending her hand. "It seems you've started quite the revolution." "Not by choice," I replied, shaking her hand. "But sometimes, history doesn't give us a choice." She smiled grimly. "No, it doesn't. The Council is waiting. It's time to decide the future of the Terran Free Alliance." As we walked toward the colony's central dome, I could see the massive shape of Leviathan through the transparent ceiling. Its dark hull, a stark contrast to the red Martian landscape beyond. In the distance, barely visible, were the pinpoints of light that marked the Confederate fleet. The battle for Kuiper Station had been won, but the war for humanity's future was just beginning. 4. The Terran Alliance and the appointed meeting. The Mars Colonial Council chamber was a semicircular room with tiered seating, designed to accommodate representatives from all the major Martian settlements. Today, it was filled beyond capacity, with additional chairs brought in for delegates from Titan, Europa, and several asteroid colonies. The atmosphere was tense, a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Commander Reel led me to a podium at the center of the chamber. "The Council has agreed to hear your proposal," she said quietly. "But I should warn you, not everyone here is convinced that defying the Confederacy is in their best interest." I nodded, scanning the faces before me. Some showed clear support, others skepticism, and a few outright hostility. "I understand. They have concerns for their people's safety." "Exactly. The Titan delegation, in particular, is worried about Confederate reprisals. Then I'll have to convince them that the greater danger lies in continued submission," I replied. As I took my place at the podium, the chamber gradually fell silent. A woman in the formal gray uniform of the Mars Colonial Administration rose from the center of the front row. "Administrator Drake," Ryle whispered to me, "head of the council." Drake surveyed the room before speaking. "This emergency session of the Extended Colonial Council is now in session. We are gathered to hear Commander Jackson Cole regarding the recent actions taken by the vessel Leviathan and the proposed formation of a Terran-free alliance." She turned to me. "Commander, you have the floor." I took a moment to gather my thoughts, aware that what I said next could determine the future of human civilization in our solar system. Representatives of Mars, Titan, Europa, and all human colonies, I began. 3 days ago, Leviathan emerged from hiding to prevent a Growl Syndicate attack on Ceres. Since then, we have exposed a plot by Chancellor Monroe to betray Earth's most advanced technology to the Confederacy, and we have evaded a Confederate fleet sent to capture or destroy us. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Some of you may be asking, why risk Confederate wrath? Why not continue as we have, accepting their nominal protection in exchange for our resources and obedience? I paused. The answer is simple. Because that path leads to extinction. I activated a holographic display showing data on Growl attacks over the past 5 years. The Confederacy's protection is an illusion. While they restrict our technological development and limit our defenses, they turn a blind eye to Growl raids on our outer colonies. Why? Because a weakened humanity serves their interests. The Titan representative, a stern-faced man named Reel, stood. "Commander Cole, while I sympathize with your concerns, the reality is that we cannot hope to stand against the Confederacy militarily. They have thousands of ships, while we have one supercarrier," I corrected, "with technology that surpasses anything in the Confederate fleet. But you're right, Leviathan alone cannot win this war. That's why I'm here today." I switched the holographic display to show technical schematics. What you're seeing is a simplified version of the Mark 7 reactor design. Not enough to build one, but enough to understand its significance. This technology, developed by Dr. Morozov and her team, represents a breakthrough that the Confederacy desperately wants. Dr. Morozov, who had joined me for the presentation, stepped forward. The Mark 7 generates 5 times the power of a standard Confederate reactor while using a third of the fuel. More importantly, it can be scaled down for use in smaller vessels or even ground installations. Our proposal is this, I continued. We share this technology among all human colonies, not just for military applications, but for energy production, manufacturing, terraforming. The possibilities are endless. In exchange, we form a mutual defense pact, the Terran Free Alliance. Administrator Drake leaned forward. And what of the Confederate fleet currently orbiting Mars? What happens when they attack? They won't attack immediately, I replied. Admiral Voss is a cautious commander. He'll wait for reinforcements and clear orders from the Confederacy. That gives us time to spread the Mark 7 technology. Time to retrofit existing ships. Time to build new ones. The Europa representative, a woman I recognized as Minister Chen, spoke up. Commander, Chancellor Monroe is still the legally appointed leader of Earth. By what authority do you propose this alliance? I had anticipated this question. Chancellor Monroe forfeited his authority when he attempted to betray humanity's interest to the Confederacy. But you don't have to take my word for it. I nodded to Burke, who activated another holographic display. This one showed Monroe in the Kuiper Station conference room, his own words damning him as he explained to the Confederate official how the Mark 7 technology could be used to neutralize any human resistance. As the recording ended, the chamber was silent. The choice before us is clear, I said into that silence. Continue as we have, watching our people die while the Confederacy claims to protect us, or stand together as a united human civilization, determining our own destiny. For the next several hours, the debate raged. Representatives raised concerns about Confederate retaliation, economic impacts, and the logistics of implementing the Mark 7 technology across different colonies. Throughout, Dr. Morozov and I answered questions, provided data, and made our case. Finally, Administrator Drake called for a vote. One by one, the representatives cast their ballots. The result was not unanimous, but it was decisive. 27 in favor, 9 against, with 3 abstentions. The motion carries, Drake announced. The colonies represented here today agree to form the Terran Free Alliance, with the shared goal of defending human interests throughout the solar system. A cheer went up from many in the chamber. Even some who had voted against the proposal nodded respectfully. It was a historic moment, the first time the human colonies had united under a single banner since the early days of space exploration. After the vote, Commander Ryle approached me. Congratulations, Commander. Or should I say, Admiral. The Council has appointed you as military commander of the Alliance forces. I blinked in surprise. That wasn't part of the proposal. It was added during the executive session, she explained. We need a unified command structure, and you've already demonstrated your capability. Before I could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the colony. Ryle's communicator buzzed, and her expression darkened as she listened to the report. What is it? I asked as she ended the call. Confederate reinforcements have arrived, she said grimly. 60 ships, including 3 dreadnoughts. They're positioning themselves throughout the system. I swore under my breath. Sooner than I expected, Voss must have had them standing by. They're broadcasting an ultimatum, Ryle continued. They're demanding the surrender of Leviathan, all Mark 7 technology, and the rebels responsible for the illegal actions at Kuiper Station, meaning you and your crew. And if we refuse, they're threatening a full blockade of Mars, followed by appropriate military action. I nodded, having expected something like this. Then we need to accelerate our plans. How quickly can we begin implementing the Mark 7 technology across the colony ships? Dr. Morozov's team has already begun working with our engineers, Ryle replied. But it will take time, days, at minimum, before we see any significant changes to our defensive capabilities. Time we may not have, I muttered. We need to buy that time. Back aboard Leviathan, I called an emergency meeting of the senior staff and Alliance representatives. The ship's conference room was crowded, tension thick in the air. The situation has escalated faster than anticipated. I began without preamble. The Confederate fleet now surrounding Mars represents the largest military force ever assembled in this sector. Their intentions are clear. Crush the Alliance before it can fully form. Can we negotiate? Suggested the Titan representative. Perhaps offer some concessions to buy time? I shook my head. The Confederacy doesn't want concessions. They want complete submission. Any negotiation would be a delaying tactic on their part, not ours. Then what do you propose, Admiral? Asked Administrator Drake. The new title still felt strange to me. A counteroffensive, I replied. Not against their entire fleet. We don't have the firepower for that yet. But a surgical strike against their command and control structure. You mean the Judicator, Burke said, understanding immediately. Admiral Voss's flagship. Exactly. The Confederate fleet operates on a rigid hierarchy. Remove the head, and the body will be temporarily paralyzed, giving us the time we need to strengthen our defenses. Dr. Morozov frowned. Even with Leviathan's capabilities, attacking a dreadnought directly would be suicide. The Judicator's shields are designed to withstand sustained bombardment from multiple ships. Which is why we won't attack conventionally, I explained. We'll use the skip drive. Morozov's eyes widened. The reactor barely handled one jump. Another could cause catastrophic failure. Not if we modify the power distribution, I countered. Route energy from non-essential systems. Use a staged approach to the power buildup. She hesitated, considering the technical challenges. It might be possible. But even if we succeed, the skip drive would be burned out afterward. We'd have no way to escape. We don't need to escape, I said. Just disable the Judicator long enough to broadcast our message to the Confederate fleet. What message? Asked Ryle. That we're not fighting to destroy the Confederacy. We're fighting for our right to exist as equals. That any ship that continues to threaten human colonies will meet the same fate as the Judicator. But those who respect our sovereignty will find a willing trading partner in the alliance. The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications of my plan. It was audacious, perhaps even foolhardy, but it offered a chance to change the narrative, to transform this from a rebellion into a legitimate struggle for self-determination. It could work, Burke said finally, especially if we time it to coincide with the implementation of the first Mark VII reactors in the colonial defense grid. Show our strength and our restraint in a single action. Reel nodded slowly. The psychological impact would be significant. The Confederacy has never suffered a defeat of this magnitude. There's something else, I added. Intelligence suggests that not all Confederate worlds are satisfied with the central government's policies. Some have been pushing for greater autonomy. If they see Earth and her colonies successfully standing up to Confederate authority, it could trigger a wider movement, finished Drake. The Confederacy might face challenges from within its own borders. Exactly. This isn't just about our freedom. It's about changing the balance of power throughout the galaxy. After further discussion, the plan was approved. Dr. Morozov and her team began the modifications to the skip drive, while Alliance engineers worked around the clock to integrate Mark VII technology into Mars's defense grid. Monroe, still in custody aboard Leviathan, was interviewed extensively, providing valuable intelligence on Confederate protocols and command structures. 3 days later, as the Confederate blockade tightened around Mars, we were ready. Leviathan would attempt a direct assault on the Judicator, using the skip drive to bypass the outer defense screen and strike at the heart of the Confederate fleet. Final system check complete, reported Burke as I entered the bridge. Skip drive modifications are holding stable. Dr. Morozov gives us a 70% chance of a successful jump. Better odds than I expected, I admitted. What about the Mark VII integration with the defense grid? First phase complete. 8 platforms now operating with the new reactors. Not enough to repel a full-scale attack, but enough to make the Confederates think twice about immediate retaliation. I nodded, taking my seat in the command chair. And the crew? Ready, sir, Burke replied. They understand the risks. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of command more heavily than ever before. Then let's proceed. Helm, move us to jump position. Communications, prepare to broadcast our message on all frequencies once the attack is complete. As Leviathan moved away from Mars, the colonial defense platforms activated, creating a corridor of safe passage through the Confederate blockade. It wasn't enough to break the blockade completely, but it provided a narrow window for our departure. Confederate ships are responding, reported the tactical officer. Destroyers moving to intercept. Hold course, I ordered. Don't engage unless directly threatened. On the main view screen, I could see the massive shape of the Judicator in the distance, surrounded by its escort vessels. Admiral Voss had positioned his flagship at the edge of the Neptune orbital path, far enough from Mars to avoid any surprise attacks, or so he thought. "Skip drive charging," announced the engineering officer. "Power levels rising steadily. 60%, 70%. "Confederate destroyers are locking weapons," warned the tactical officer. "They're preparing to fire. Evasive maneuvers. But maintain our trajectory toward the jump point," I commanded. "Tactical, defensive measures only." Leviathan banked sharply as the first volley of Confederate fire streaked past. Our point defense systems activated automatically, intercepting missiles before they could reach us. "Skip drive at 85%, reported engineering. "Approaching critical threshold." Dr. Morozov's voice came through the comm system. "The reactor is showing signs of strain. Admiral, we need to initiate the jump soon or risk overload." "Understood," I replied. "Helm, final approach to jump coordinates." Leviathan surged forward, accelerating toward the predetermined point where we would activate the skip drive. Behind us, the Confederate destroyers gave chase, continuing to fire. "Shields at 87%, reported the defense officer. "Minor damage to outer hull plating in Section 4. "Skip drive at 92% and holding," added engineering. "Ready for activation on your command." I studied the tactical display, watching as we approached the optimal position. The Judicator was still too far for conventional weapons, but the skip drive would bridge that gap in an instant. "All hands, secure for skip drive activation," I ordered. "Engineering, final power transfer to the drive systems." The lights on the bridge dimmed momentarily as power was diverted to the experimental drive. I could feel a subtle vibration through the deck plates as the massive energies built up in the ship's core. "Skip drive at maximum charge," announced engineering. "Ready to activate." I took a deep breath. "Engage!" For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, with a violent lurch that threw several crew members from their stations, space itself appeared to fold around Leviathan. The view screen showed a bizarre distortion of light and color. And then, we were there, directly in front of the Judicator, so close that the dreadnought filled our entire forward view. The Confederate flagship's point defense systems hadn't even activated yet, its crew undoubtedly shocked by our sudden appearance. "Skip drive successful!" exclaimed the helmsman. "Position confirmed, 500 meters off the Judicator's bow." "Reactor status?" I demanded. "Critical," came Dr. Morozov's tense voice. "The skip drive conduits are burned out, and the Mark 7 is operating at 110% capacity. We need to reduce power immediately." "Divert all non-essential power," I ordered. "Weapons, target the Judicator's command tower and main propulsion systems. Fire when ready." The Confederate dreadnought was finally responding to our presence, its massive weapon systems swiveling to target us. But we had the advantage of surprise and proximity. "Firing main railguns," reported the tactical officer. Leviathan shuddered as the railguns discharged in rapid succession. The kinetic rounds streaked toward the Judicator, striking its shields with tremendous force. The dreadnought's defensive barrier flared brilliantly, absorbing the impacts. "Minimal effect," reported the tactical officer. "Their shields are holding." I frowned. "Dr. Morozov, we need more power to the weapons." "The reactor can't take it," she protested. "We're already at dangerous levels." Before I could respond, the Judicator fired its main batteries. Massive energy beams lanced out, striking Leviathan's shields with devastating force. "Shields at 60%, shouted the defense officer. "Direct hit to forward sections." The ship rocked violently, warning lights flashing across multiple control panels. We had underestimated the dreadnought's defensive capabilities. Its shields were newer, stronger than our intelligence had suggested. "We need a new approach," Burke said urgently. "The railguns aren't penetrating their shields." I made a quick decision. "Helm, bring us alongside their starboard flank. Tactical, prepare all missile tubes. Target their shield generators directly. As Leviathan maneuvered, the Judicator continued to fire. Each hit further, weakening our shields. The Confederate escort vessels were also responding now, moving to engage us. Dr. Morozov, I called over the comm. I need options. The Mark 7, can we use it directly? There was a pause before she responded. There is one possibility. The reactor can generate a focused energy pulse, similar to what you discussed with Monroe. It would be a directed burst, not a weapon per se. Would it penetrate their shields? Yes, but the power requirements would push the reactor beyond safe limits. We might not be able to contain the resulting cascade. In other words, it might destroy us along with the target. I looked around the bridge, at the determined faces of my crew. They understood the stakes. Do it, I ordered. Target their main shield generator. Aye, sir, she replied. Configuring the reactor now. Everyone in engineering is being evacuated to safe sections. Burke approached my chair. Jackson, if this works... I know. I cut him off. Get to an escape pod. Take as many of the crew as you can. He shook his head. Not a chance. We started this together. We'll finish it together. Before I could argue, the tactical officer shouted, Multiple Confederate vessels closing in. 3 minutes until they're in firing range. Status of the energy pulse? I demanded. Charging, reported Dr. Morozov. Reactor at 120% capacity and rising. Containment fields are beginning to fluctuate. The ship groaned. Metal stress sounds echoing through the hull as the Mark 7 reactor pushed beyond its design limits. On the view screen, I could see the Judicator preparing to fire again, its massive weapon arrays glowing with building energy. Incoming fire, warned the tactical officer. The Dreadnought's main cannons fired, the beams striking Leviathan with even greater force than before. The bridge shook violently, consoles exploding in showers of sparks. Shields at 28%, called out the defense officer. Hull breaches on decks 5 through 8. Emergency bulkheads engaged. Energy pulse at 80% charge, Dr. Morozov reported, her voice strained. Containment fields failing in sections 3 and 4. We can't hold it much longer. Bring us closer, I ordered the helmsman. Point-blank range. Leviathan surged forward, closing the remaining distance to the Judicator. At this range, both ships' point defense systems were firing continuously, creating a web of interceptor fire between them. Energy pulse at 95%, announced Dr. Morozov. Reactor temperature critical. Containment failure imminent. Target locked, confirmed the tactical officer. Ready to fire. The Judicator's weapons were charging again. We wouldn't survive another direct hit. Fire, I ordered. For a brief moment, Leviathan's lights dimmed completely. Then, with a sound like thunder, a brilliant blue-white beam erupted from an emitter hastily installed on our forward section. The energy pulse struck the Judicator precisely at its main shield generator, the tremendous power overwhelming the Dreadnought's defenses. The Confederate flagship's shields collapsed in a spectacular cascade failure, the energy pulse continuing through to strike the hull beneath. Secondary explosions rippled across the Judicator's surface as power systems overloaded. Direct hit, exclaimed the tactical officer. Their shields are down, main power systems failing. And our status? I asked, already knowing the answer from the wailing alarms. Reactor containment failing, reported Dr. Morozov, her voice eerily calm. Mark 7 approaching meltdown. We have minutes at most. Broadcast our message. I ordered the communications officer. All frequencies, maximum power. As the message began transmitting, our Declaration of Independence, our terms for peace, our warning to those who would continue to threaten human colonies. I watched the crippled Judicator on the view screen. The massive Dreadnought was drifting, its main propulsion offline, escape pods launching from multiple sections. Message transmitted and received, confirmed the communications officer. Confederate vessels are responding. They're standing down. weapon systems powering down across their fleet. A cheer went up from the bridge crew, quickly silenced by another violent shudder that ran through the ship. "Final reactor status?" I asked. 2 minutes to catastrophic failure," replied Dr. Morozov. "There's nothing more we can do. Admiral, the containment fields are completely collapsed. I made my final decision as commander. All hands, abandon ship. Proceed to escape pods immediately. Burke, coordinate the evacuation." As the bridge crew rushed to comply, I remained in the command chair, watching the tactical display. The Confederate fleet was indeed standing down, their formations breaking up as individual captains processed what they had just witnessed. Their flagship, the symbol of Confederate power in this sector, disabled by a single vessel. "Admiral," Burke said from beside me, "the last pods are launching. It's time to go." I nodded, rising from the chair. "Set the autopilot to take Leviathan away from all ships in the area. Let's minimize the damage when she goes." We hurried through the corridors, now empty, as the crew had evacuated. The ship groaned around us, the deck plates hot beneath our feet as the reactor's heat permeated the hull. 30 seconds, warned Dr. Morozov through the comm system. She had remained in engineering, working until the last possible moment to contain the reaction. Burke and I reached the final escape pod, finding Dr. Morozov already there, her face streaked with sweat and grime. "I thought you were still in engineering," I said as we sealed the pod. "Automated the final procedures," she replied. "Some things are worth risking your life for, but not when the outcome is already determined." The pod launched, accelerating away from Leviathan, through the small viewport. I watched as our ship, the culmination of 5 years of secret work, moved steadily away from the Confederate fleet. When the end came, it was both more and less dramatic than I had expected. There was no massive explosion, no fireball spreading across space. Instead, a brilliant blue-white light erupted from Leviathan's center, expanding outward as the Mark 7 reactor released its contained energy. For a brief moment, the ship seemed to glow from within, and then it simply disintegrated, the molecular bonds of its structure overcome by the tremendous energies released. "A fitting end," murmured Burke beside me. "She served her purpose." I nodded, watching as the Confederate vessels continued to hold their positions, making no move to pursue the escaping pods. And a new beginning. 5. The decisive battle and the new future. The aftermath of Leviathan's destruction unfolded more rapidly than any of us had anticipated. Our escape pods were recovered not by Confederate vessels, but by ships from Mars Colony, which had launched the moment they received word of our success. Within hours, Admiral Voss, now aboard one of his fleet's cruisers, requested a direct communication channel with the Alliance leadership. His face on the view screen showed a mixture of shock and grudging respect. "The Confederate Security Council has authorized me to open negotiations with the Terran Free Alliance," he announced, the new name clearly unfamiliar on his tongue. "A temporary cessation of hostilities will be maintained while these discussions proceed." It wasn't victory, not yet, but it was acknowledgement, the first step toward the recognition we had fought for. The negotiations took place on Titan, in neutral facilities provided by the colony's administration. I represented the Alliance military interests, while Administrator Drake led the political delegation. The Confederate team was headed by a senior diplomat, with Admiral Voss providing military expertise. For 2 weeks, we negotiated terms, recognition of Alliance sovereignty, trade agreements, security protocols. The Confederacy, shaken by the destruction of the Judicator and the revelation of the Mark 7 technology, was more willing to compromise than we had expected. "They're afraid," Burke observed during a private moment between sessions. "Not just of what we did, but of what might happen in their other territories if word spreads that a minor human alliance defeated their flagship." "Good," I replied. "Fear is sometimes a necessary step toward respect." When the Treaty of Titan was finally signed, It established the Terran Free Alliance as a sovereign entity, with all human colonies in the solar system united under a single government for the first time. The Confederacy recognized our borders and our right to self-defense, while we agreed to limited technology sharing and mutual defense against threats like the Growl Syndicate. Monroe, tried and convicted of treason against humanity, was sentenced to life imprisonment on a secure facility on Europa, a fitting location, given that it was where Leviathan had been born. As for me, the Alliance Council confirmed my position as Admiral of the newly established defense fleet. With Dr. Morozov's guidance, the Mark VII technology was being implemented across our ships and defense platforms, creating a force that would deter any future aggression. 3 months after the Battle of Neptune, as it came to be called, I stood on the observation deck of the Mars orbital station, watching as the first ship of our new fleet completed its maiden voyage. The TSV Defender wasn't as large as Leviathan had been, but it incorporated all the lessons we had learned, with a stable Mark VII reactor at its heart. Burke joined me at the viewport. "She's a beautiful ship," he commented. "The first of many." I nodded. "Dr. Morozov says the production line is ahead of schedule. We'll have 5 more ready by the end of the year." "And the Confederacy?" "Maintaining a respectful distance," I replied. "Their new ambassador arrived yesterday. Seems eager to establish mutually beneficial relations." Burke smiled slightly. "Amazing how destroying one dreadnought can change diplomatic attitudes." "It wasn't just the dreadnought," I said. "It was what it represented. For the first time, someone stood up to them and won." He nodded thoughtfully. "Speaking of standing up, there's something you should see." He handed me a datapad displaying a newsfeed from one of the outer Confederate worlds. The headline read, "Colonial representatives demand greater autonomy. Cite Terran Alliance example." "It's happening across Confederate space," Burke explained. "Colonies that have been under tight control for decades are beginning to push back, inspired by what we did." "The Confederacy won't give up control easily," I warned. "There could be conflict." "Probably," he agreed. "But that's not our fight, not directly. At least, we've shown it's possible to stand up for independence. How others do it is up to them." I handed the pad back, turning again to watch the Defender as it maneuvered into its docking position. "What about the Growl Syndicate? Any activity since the treaty?" "None in our territory," Burke reported. "They've pulled back to their core systems. Apparently, they're facing some internal challenges of their own." "Good," I said. "We need time to strengthen our position before facing that particular problem again." A young officer approached, saluting smartly. "Admiral Cole, the council session is about to begin. They're waiting for your report on fleet readiness." I nodded. "Tell them I'll be there shortly." As the officer departed, Burke gave me a questioning look. "Thinking about something?" "Just reflecting," I admitted. When we started this journey, hiding beneath the ice of Europa, I never imagined we'd end up here, architects of a new human alliance, changing the balance of power in the galaxy. "Having second thoughts?" I shook my head. "No. Just appreciating the responsibility. What we do now will shape humanity's future for generations." Burke smiled. "Well, if anyone can handle that responsibility, it's you, Jackson." I returned the smile, then turned to leave, duty calling once again. As I walked toward the council chamber, I thought about the journey that had brought us here, the sacrifices, the risks, the moments of doubt and triumph. Leviathan was gone, but what it represented lived on. Humanity's determination to control its own destiny, to stand equal among the stars. We had changed the course of history, just as I had told my crew we would that day, beneath Europa's ice. But Burke was right about one thing. Our journey wasn't over. In many ways, it was just beginning. Standing at the entrance to the council chamber, I paused for a moment, looking back through the viewports at the red planet below and the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, other worlds were watching what we had done, drawing inspiration from our stand against the Confederacy. A new era was dawning, not just for Earth and her colonies, but perhaps for the galaxy itself. An era where freedom and self-determination would spread like ripples from the stone we had cast into the cosmic pond. With that thought firmly in mind, I straightened my uniform and entered the chamber, ready to help guide humanity through the next phase of its journey among the stars. We have made history. I began my address to the Council. But the path ahead, the true journey into our future as a united people, has only just begun.